3 miles today. Yeah, do my first. So if I die, we're live, so they're gonna hear the rest of this. So if I die, I'm running to Southland and back. I may run to the gym and back. So you know where to find me. Just pick me up on Eureka somewhere. What's up, you guys? Coach David here, with Metro Jiu-Jitsu, here with Professor Muhammad. Professor, how we doing today, my man?
Hey, good morning. Run over to GNC, coach. We'll get you a hydration drink to
Yeah.
make
Oh,
sure
there we go.
you
Actually,
make
that's
it
not a
back.
bad. That's not a bad gig because it's probably. That might be just under. Yeah, it might be a mile and a half there, maybe a little bit less. But running down Eureka is a dangerous game, dude. Like people don't look. Like I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. So, we'll see. So guys, we have several topics we're going to talk about today. Just in no particular order, we're talking about. I think it would let's recap. We'll just do like a brief recap our tournament. We went to Arnold's to kind of talk about how that went, but then also private lessons, how to get the most out of your school and your instructor, how to study jiu-jitsu on YouTube, and then the best and worst training partners that you're stuck with. And then if we have time, we're going to answer the question, is jiu-jitsu a cult? And then Ramadan is coming up. The later, was it in a week, Coach? Did I hear? Is it a week that Ramadan comes up?
7 days.
So I want to talk about, I kind of want to go into, obviously I'm personally really familiar with training partners who train during Ramadan, and I want to kind of go into what that's like. If we can't hit it on this podcast, we'll hit it on the next one. So let's start with private lessons, okay? And we'll just ask who should take private lessons. Coach, how many private lessons have you taken? Is there a point in which it's not worth it if you haven't been training long enough? And we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is a private lesson? So essentially, it's a one-on-one lesson for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or it could be a small group lesson. And it's essentially having more one-on-one time with the owner or the instructor or coach. And they get to take a closer look at your technique, your training, and the feedback or the help you're going to get is much more specific to you versus being in a room with 30, 40, 50 of other people. You have to kind of speak to the masses, but in private lessons, you're it's essentially one-on-one or very, very specific to you. So
So I've got I get asked, and I've got, I don't know what's going on with my voice. I kind of got this sultry sort of like Phoebe Buffet, like singer voice going on. It's scratchy. To my knowledge, I'm not sick. It's just kind of getting coarse, and I don't know what the issue is. So I apologize in advance. But yeah, I get asked, for private lessons every now and then. Personally, I don't. I don't personally enjoy them. Number one, I'd rather teach groups. I will do them. I have done them, but I tend to get asked them more from like people who just started. 2 or 3 months in, and my personal answer is I'm like, guys, what am I going to teach you? Like, what am I going to teach you 2 or 3 months in? Like go over our blue belt curriculum, look at that, ask, it's all, I always try to private lessons. You're paying a premium now for that time with your instructor. I try to treat that money like my money. Is it going to be worth it? And if do you really want to pay over $100 an hour for to learn a knee cut? Or a lot of them, they can't even move their bodies right to kind of fully do it. So that's my opinion. I know I maybe not everyone shares that. What's your thoughts on that? If someone's just getting started is private lessons, are they really necessary? Is it the best investment? What's kind of your take on that?
Yeah, so I believe private lessons should be almost mandatory in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Uh, I going back when I was like 12 years old, just after I played soccer for a few years, from like 5 or 6 to preteen, um, and even you're going back like 30 years or more. Even then, once you get to the teenage level, it started to become more common for kids and parents to say, I want to separate myself. I want to get better. I want to compete more at whatever sport it is. And so I have experience in investing in basketball, football, hockey, of course, martial arts. I've taken hundreds and hundreds and spent thousands of dollars on private lessons. So, so yeah, I think that my opinion is you definitely need private lessons. So everybody needs something different. And sometimes when you first start out in jiu-jitsu, you don't really know what it is that you need. What you want and what you need are two different things. So somebody starting out in 2 or 3 months, they might need a little bit more of a pat on the back and say, you know what, just keep training and keep your head up. What you're going through is normal. They might need a little bit more one-on-one time to give the student or athlete a little bit more emotional support. And as people start training more, it's funny because they start to need more technical help. And then it circles back. And even after you've been training 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years, it's happened to myself. Now you need more emotional support again, because Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is like, it takes a long time to put all the pieces together.
So I've been going to like I think a lot of people know by now. I've got a just a personal goal. One of the things I hate most about jiu-jitsu is competing. I really don't enjoy any portion of it. And so my kind of a personal philosophy I have is to kind of embrace the suck there, kind of go towards that which you're kind of afraid of a little bit. So
Yeah.
I've got a goal to compete 15 times this year, and every time I go out and compete, I'm sending stuff to Coach Alvarez, and he's giving me like adjustments, right? And none of it is like you're missing this totally flashy move. It's literally like a lot of the things are just like framing, timing a little bit, and at the black belt level, it's like who makes the first mistake. I can go back I think I had 6 matches on Saturday. They almost all of them came down to just one mistake. I think I lost 3 by decision, which is just the worst. Like that's
Yeah.
I'd almost rather lose on points to know that I got beat than to like if it came down to decision, like that was my fault. So so that those simple fundamental jujitsu is really is those things that's really helpful. It's really helpful for that, and so what so yeah, I know you've taken a lot of private lessons. That's actually how you met Coach Alvarez. Was that Andre Galvo seminar, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't a
Yeah.
private, but it was a seminar.
Yeah.
And that's how you met that's how you met Danny. What did that conversation look like? Cuz I don't even I remember you called me after and you're like, "Hey, I met this guy Danny." I was like, "Okay." Like what, all right? Like I'm sure there was lots of people there. What's the point? And you're like, "Well, I kind of like you. See, we were partnered up with him, which is wild that you two got partnered up. It was like,
Yeah, well, I walked in like as the seminar it had started a couple minutes prior,
mm,
and I know Jesse over there and some of the other guys, and everybody had a partner. So Danny was over there, and so I asked him if he had a partner, and obviously, I'm a lot heavier than Coach Alvarez. I had no idea who he is. I had no idea I'm walking up to a multiple time world champion, and who has multiple world champion students. Is like, this guy is a legend and BJJ heroes. I had no idea who I'm talking to. So I asked him if he had a partner, and he's like, no, no, come on. So it's always, when you're training with somebody you don't know, and then you have different sizes, it's both person's responsibility to try to adjust their body to help accommodate your partner. So I have a physical game, but I try to stay in the confinement of being a lightweight and training like a smaller guy. So I'd be more flexible, be more explosive and stuff like that. Um, uh, so, so yeah, we started repping and, training together and going over the moves. And, we just started talking, none of it was planned, and I exchanged numbers with him. He seemed like a nice guy, and from there, you remember, you and I spoke to him a couple times. We visited him, and both of us thought it was a good fit. It wasn't like I had to make sure that he's good for us and we're good for him. And 5 years later, just by going to a seminar, some great things a great partnership came out of it, and our team is growing. Alvarez's team is growing. So, yeah, it all came out from continuing the education. So,
So we're moving to just because we have a lot of topics. We're moving to our next one is getting the most out of your school and your instructor. What? Okay, I mean, so the obvious question, how do we get the most out of our school and our instructor, and uh, let's just open it up to that. There's a few different avenues that I'm sure will take us, but let's open it up to that. How do we get the most out of it? And then for each
yeah,
each person.
yeah. So, when you have an instructor that you're working under or training underneath, I think one of the worst questions to ask, and everybody does it, but they don't know what they're doing wrong. So the wrong question to ask your instructor is, "What do I need to work on?" That's the absolute. This is my opinion. You don't want to ask your instructor, "What do I need to work on?" Is there anything you see? Because your instructor is, I would bet 99% of the time, you know, they would not, they're not going to be in business if they don't have an awareness to what the majority, pretty much all of their students are at, what level, how they're moving in certain positions. So I think that's a wrong question to ask. So one of the ways to get the most out of your instructor in your school is to, they give you information, and you have to take that information and you have to go use the information. you know if you take that information and you go try to do something outside of the information that they're giving you, then there's a big disconnect. So if you stay in the confines of what the transfer of knowledge is from one instructor to another, to student, then I believe you're going to have much, much better questions. And the questions that students ask their instructor gives them a clear, very, very clear uh, um, picture of where their student is at. So there's no such thing as a stupid question, but there is such thing as somebody asking a question that says you are not dialed in.
Oh,
You're
there are
somewhere else.
there are stupid questions. I mean, anyone who says there are not stupid questions has never taught kids, dude. Like there are stupid. I'm sorry. There are dumb questions. Usually not asked by adults, right? But with kids there's dumb questions. So I let's play I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. There are
Yeah,
guards I just don't play. And every time I try to play
yeah,
them, shit just goes south really quick. Case in point,
yeah,
Delahiva. Like my Delahiva, anytime I try to play Delahiva, one of two things is happening. I'm gonna get toe holded or heel hooked, or I'm just gonna like it's gonna be such a lame guard for me that like they're gonna backstep or pat. It might just it's like throwing like a sugar cube into a bowl of water and just watching it dissolve, right? To the point I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna like I've been learning Delahiva since I was a blue belt.
By
In the
the way,
gi, in the gi.
I saw you playing Delahiva at the tournament.
So you saw what happened, right? You saw
Okay,
my
but I
back get
saw
taken.
I saw you playing Delahiva and experimenting a little bit at the
Yeah.
tournament. So just for the record, so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
like
good.
and
I'm like,
and, and like
whoa.
every time it like never goes great. Like it never goes great. Furthermore, I don't even like. I'll be honest. I don't even want to make it work. I don't want a good I don't want a good De La Hiva, right? I'm happy with working on my half guard or close guard.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I don't see people getting tore up in nogi jujitsu, with the De La Hiva, right? So and I do have a body that could play it. You and I have very similar body styles. You play De La Hiva very well. I don't play it, and it's not a part of my game. So if we're showing a De La Hiva series, or let's take someone who doesn't, their body style is not conducive to De La Hiva, right? I'm thinking of north of 250, 270, right? And that De La Hiva is just usually not going to work out super great for them. What if they and you're teaching a De La Hiva series? What would you say to that person? I mean, let's be fair. Let's play a little bit fair, because I've taught things with I've taught things, a triangle, and I'm thinking we have a student who has one good leg, right? She's an amputee. What would you say to that if you there are some things that's just not conducive to that? How can they still maximize work within, maximize getting what the instructor is coaching, if whatever that series you're covering is not really directly with their body type or their game.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. And I'm going to answer it this way. If you take, let's say you could not do a specific move called De La Hiva. So that's where you thread one of your legs all the way through between the other one, try to hyperextend their knee forward, try to get them off balance. Let's say that's not for you. Let's say the berimbolo is not for you also. That's where you kind of have to invert and get underneath a person and take their back. It's kind of like a fancy. It's one of those. It's if you don't know anything about jujitsu and you see somebody do a berimbolo, you're like, whoa, that's fancy. It's a highlight reel. So yes, those moves are not for everybody, but when the class structure is going over those moves, there are so many different grips and uses of your body against the other person's body that I believe are critical to know that transfer later on. Like when you go berimbolo, for example, you got to pull their hip and pull them back or scoot underneath them and grab their neck. I mean, these grips, whether it be grabbing the shoulder, grabbing the top collar, I think they transfer in other places. And as far as De La Hiva, like you're very, very vulnerable in a lot of different areas when you're playing the De La Hiva guard. But because you know that your leg is vulnerable for somebody else to attack, then we have to be hyper vigilant on understanding where specifically are the vulnerable points. And even if you can't play it, maybe you can use it to get them off balance or, throw them off into thinking you're going to play one guard and not another. But to answer your question in short, there's so many other pieces that come around De La Hiva and Berimbolo that are useful in many areas of jujitsu. And if you take them out because you think you can't do them, then I think you're gonna hurt your A game or the places that you feel most comfortable on, because you could be missing some grips and some learning about how their body moves, your body moves, where it needs to move and where it shouldn't move. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and that's kind of where, and I'll concede that, like to the De La Hiva, I tried. What happened at that finals, dude? That guy was a wrestling coach. That finals one.
Really?
Yeah, he was a Pan's silver medalist, and then he was a wrestling coach. And I was rewatching the match. I was like, we kind of, I didn't get taken down, at least. It was just a lot of a back and forth. But I pulled, and my tripod, like he defended the tripod, and so when they do that, you kind of have to, like, a really low hanging fruit is that De La Hiva, but using it more as a transition, which I'll concede, right? Like if you, it doesn't have to be your A game, but like if you ignore it entirely, it's just dude, every time, like every time it goes south pretty much immediately. I think it's because it's one of those like your first like intermediate guards that you learn, like especially at blue, like you've got your clothes and your hat, like your normal ones, and then they're like, oh, I'm gonna start playing a little bit of De La Hiva, and everyone
Mm-hmm.
learns defenses to those, like really quickly. and they keep you honest with that. So so not running away from them, but also just understanding, hey, my body's more conducive to maybe a different primary A game. So moving on to the next to our next topic here. Just how to study jiu-jitsu on YouTube. Honestly, I've got, I mean, I don't, I kind of like what I'm doing right now with Coach Alvarez. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'll send him a YouTube video of things not working for me, and then he'll send me a short, because I just need, a lot of times it's just that it's like one thing or two things I'm doing wrong, right? And that's a simple, like, adjusting your current game. I've kind of got a foundational game though. If I didn't have any game, boy, I would feel like I'm drinking from a fire hydrant going on YouTube. I mean, there was just so much. Like, how do you know what to even pay attention to? I mean, I see some, I see some stuff. I see it more on Instagram, but I'm like, dude, if I was a white belt trying this stuff, I don't know. It would be like, learning how to shingle a roof before you've, like, put the footings in on a house a little bit, it's kind of, you need the foundations to work for this to even apply. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree. I think whatever level, like let's put you into 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12, 12, and above. So depending on where the person is at, that is going to the answer might change a little bit. But for beginners in jujitsu, for beginners, they're like you said, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. There is so much information out there, and the sometimes the person's intention is to get views, and sometimes it's actually to teach you jujitsu. So I would say that um, you you can get the most benefit off of jujitsu or YouTube or instructionals by looking up and researching what you are working on in class.
Mm,
Because if you spend a whole hour working in class and then you spend another 30 to 60 minutes training, position training, working on that, and then you go on YouTube and you're working on something completely different,
mm,
it's like picking up a brand new book after you're halfway through one of them.
mm.
Like it's really gonna it's kind of a waste of time.
I like that.
So I think
I
you
like that.
yeah, I think there's a lot of benefit to YouTube, but you use it to learn whatever you're studying in the class. And there's many different variations. I was
Yeah.
telling somebody last night, they were asking me about the De La Hiva or the X Guard or whatever. And I said, look, I'm not going to tell you where to put your hands. I'm not going to tell you exactly where to put your feet. What I am going to tell you, if you took away one of their hands and one of their feet out of the equation, it doesn't really matter where specifically things go. What does matter is you use your body to push them towards the hand that's away, which they can't base, or the leg that's away, which they can't base from. So it's not really about, that was a very specific, uh, um, uh, student that we were working with. But uh, yeah, use jujitsu, YouTube or instructionals to look up what you're learning in school. That will expedite your learning curve.
Yeah, I think that's it's kind of like, I want to learn world history. It's a big topic, dude. Like what are you actually studying? Like, are you studying like Western history, like, and going deep into that. I mean, you look at the high levels, and they're like doing, like, they've got like five or six moves that they're good at, and Coach Sawula goes deep into that. Like he's like, you know, don't worry about the guy. Like, nobody has they're not like okay at 1,000 moves. They're incredibly good at like four, and like so good to where I can call it out in you. He's obviously our takedown coach, like to where like I can, like, I'm gonna hit a fireman on you, and you won't be able to stop me. Like that's the level of which like you want to get good at, and we talk about, like our fundamentals, jujitsu, like tripod sweep works at the black belt level. Like it's like if you set it up, like you're going to see these guys. A lot of them are doing knee cuts, X passes. I didn't see. Did you see any Berimbolo from the black belts at grappling?
Um,
I saw. I might have seen it at some Browns at like the
yeah,
lighter weights. I think I might have
yeah,
seen it at the lighter weights.
yeah. No, I didn't. I did not. But
Yeah.
no, I did not. But I mean, it doesn't mean. Yeah, I did not, and it's very common, and sometimes you'll see lots of them. Sometimes you won't, but you're right. The jujitsu comes down to like very, very basic fundamentals. That opens up for a lot of flashy moves if you could master and really dive in and appreciate the fundamentals in jujitsu, just like any other sport.
So we're moving on to the next topic. The best and worst training partners you're stuck with. Well, I can tell you the worst. The worst training partners are the smelly ones. Like that's fact. Like that's facts. Like I don't care what rank you are. If you smell bad, like I'm not training with you. So that's the worst, at least in my book. How about you, coach?
Yeah, I mean, as far as hygiene, bro, anybody watching this, wherever you are at, I can't I can't emphasize how important it is to make sure you come to class, clean and showered. And I cannot emphasize how much you should take care of your uniform, your gi, or your rash guard, or whatever it is you're wearing. I can't emphasize how much that is. And if for anybody who's ever trained with somebody that was not practicing good hygiene, or sweating throughout the day and didn't shower before coming into work to the gym, you are doing them such a disservice. I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you. Like, that's like you're in public and you're with one of your friends, their zipper is open and you don't tell them. You're in public with one of your friends and they got something on their nose or face and you don't tell them. I mean, if your training partner, you don't have to be friends, has a odor or something like that, it's very important you let them know. Maybe it can't be remedied right at that moment, but you have to let them know. And yeah, and sometimes, and I mean, imagine somebody coming to the gym and they have a odor or a bad smell or whatever it is. The gi's dirty or they didn't shower for months and weeks and years, and they love jujitsu, and they think everybody hates them because they don't want to roll with them, they don't want to be around them, but really nobody told them that they have a smell. So I agree to that. Another category of worst training partners is like have you read the book Choose Your Enemies Wisely? Patrick Bet David.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good book. Choose Your Enemies Wisely is a very, very good book. So, like, having enemies isn't a bad thing. Like, you're one of my enemies because talk about Delahiva. You've smashed my Delahiva for like years and years and years and years, and I've been so stubborn into.
Is it because it doesn't work? Like Delahiva, I it hurts my knees, dude. Like I can't, like the fact that you play it, it
No,
just
beep that
hurts.
out. Beep
It
that out.
hurts,
Delahiva is
man.
not bad for your knees.
Oh, all
No,
right.
no, beep
Well,
that out.
it's bad for my
Beep
knees.
that
I don't
out.
I don't know what to I don't know what to tell you.
No, so the best and worst training partner, the worst training partner could be the best one. And if you're working on a specific strategy and you go in again and again and it doesn't work with this training partner, they're actually helping you identify that this specific technique doesn't work. And then now it's your responsibility with you and your coach to go back and say, look, I'm working this and I'm trying very specifically what we worked on and I'm not getting anywhere. So that training partner, like, you for me and, other students for other students, um, they could be a very, very big resource for you because they don't care what you're working. They're trying to bring their A game and you're working on something else. And so they could be a big resource in helping you really expedite your learning curve by shutting it down again and again.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot with the kids, right? Like, you've got I had a conversation with a parent just last week. They're like, "Hey, little man he's not being aggressive enough. What do I do?" And I know the kid. He did our summer program last year. Sweet kid, good heart, doesn't want to hurt anyone. And I talking to dad. I said, "You're dealing. This is the same thing with my daughter. Okay, she doesn't want to hurt anyone. She's here to have fun. You want to make sure it stays fun." And you want to, you don't want to tell them be more aggressive, be more violent, right? Because that's not necessarily behavior you want to encourage. What you do want to encourage is you're trying to simulate actual combat, and you want to create this live. We call it feedback, right? That's why jujitsu is one of the best self-defense martial arts in the world, contrary to what Mr. Justin is saying on YouTube at the moment. So but you want to make sure you give that live feedback. Because if Scarlett will like get mount and then let someone roll her over because she feels bad she's winning for too long, right? And I've seen that with other kids as well, or they don't want to hurt someone with a hard takedown. So that you're being a good teammate by preparing them for bullying, by preparing them for. I can't tell you how. I mean, you've said this before. Some of the training that we go through, yeah, I mean, like I feel more beat up at the end of most classes than I do at tournaments. Largely, unless I'm going in the absolutes against some cave troll, right? But that is, that is you're creating that, you're simulating that feedback, to where that muscle memory comes into play. So you want to, and that's, I think you're being a good teammate. And sometimes to the point people think, oh, are you mad at me? Are you upset at me? Like, no, it's my job to get you better. And you don't get better if I just kind of like baby you and coddle you all the time. When you get started and when you're just getting started, fine, totally different game. Fresh white belts, you kind of need to nurture them like a seedling, right? But like once you're getting stripes on there and then blues and up, like this is what we do. This is what makes it. This is the art. This is the art. So I do want to, normally we do these at the end. I don't know if Justin is still watching. Jiu-Jitsu is the worst self-defense fighting in the world, and that's facts. So, Justin, I'm going to go out on a limb, and based on your verbiage, I'm going to say you're 18, 19, maybe 21. I'll give you 21. I'll give you 21, 22. Throw in the comments what you believe the best self-defense fighting is. And I swear on my life, if you answer with Krav Maga, you're discredited as an authority. So I'll just answer that right now. So go ahead and I'll give you a chance to respond to that, Coach. Do you have anything to say to Mr. Justin's self-defense worst fighting in the? I don't know how these comments are still happening, but what do you have to say to Mr. Justin's comment?
Yeah, he might be like a gamer who plays with his fingers all the time, but I don't think he very likely doesn't know anything about martial arts. Now, if he said jiu-jitsu wasn't the best against multiple attackers,
sure. Well, of course.
Okay, you'd get my attention, but yeah, he doesn't know anything about anything. So yeah, maybe he's like 12 or 13.
Yeah, I don't know. Hard to say. So I'm waiting on
Yeah,
a response from my man.
yeah, but as far as our conversation about the kids and adults, it's actually been my experience, and I've seen this many times, many times. The quietest, sweetest, most timid kids end out to be like the toughest, most relentless athletes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've seen that so many times I can't tell you. Like, if you have a little girl or young kid that is training and they're kind of afraid to hurt somebody, and you can see it. They don't know how to turn it on and like really put the pressure on their teammate. There's nothing you can do about that. Like you said, like the goal is to teach them, get them familiar with these positions, so if they have to use it in self-defense,
Sure.
they've been there before and they know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And as they get older, like we have one of our students that was in the kids class, and she was like 10 or 11, and she would make boys cry all the time. And she was so quiet. She was like, she just look at you like, that's a peaceful girl. That's such a quiet, reserved girl. And she wasn't animated. She wasn't loud. And, you know, she could just, she's one of those kids that you kind of forget they're there. They're so quiet and they blend in. But when she was training, there was a side to her that was emotionless, but it was very, very physical and it was very tough. And she would make boys cry all the time, all the time. And just like, you know, you kind of have to let the girl go who's not really, doesn't really want to hurt somebody. You can't really coach them through that so much. The girl who's actually doing what you're asking them to, putting heavy pressure on top, you know, controlling the head and making somebody like pay for making a mistake in jiu-jitsu, you kind of, they're doing what they're told, so they don't know how to put the gas pedal and control it, like go all the way up and all the way down. So I would say you kind of have to let it run its course and just keep them training.
So, so we've got a moving on to our next topic here, and it's we're going to talk about jujitsu as a cult. So a lot of people come in, or is jujitsu a cult? Is the question. A lot of people come in from other activities, right? They'll come in from uh like a pickup, let's say that it's a pickup basketball game, or maybe they played hockey, or like beer league hockey is another one, or just like something a little bit maybe whether organized or unorganized, but not nearly as formal. And so, and you'll have schools, there are different portions of schools that have uniform policies. There are schools that have white gi only policies, like you're only allowed to wear a white gi. You have schools that are no gi only. You have a school, so like there's different rigid, kind of policies or rules that they have in place, and people are like, "Oh man, that's a cult. I just want to be." You start talking to Americans, and they're like, "Don't touch my freedoms." Well, okay, but I mean, everyone's got rules, right? You have guidelines and you have standards. Like your freedom. If you're like a peace, love, and wellness, but you don't believe in showering because the water is bad for you, like that's gonna go directly against our our policy of like good hygiene, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say? And there's a couple of them we can, and if you guys are watching this, what are some cultic? I'm curious. What are some generically cultic behaviors of jujitsu? Because I'm also going to tie in things like I'm going to bring Apple and Facebook uh, and Google into the conversation here in a second. So, what are some cultic behaviors or habits that jujitsu players exhibit? So, what do you think about that, Coach? Let's start there.
Yeah. Like it's not my job to really parent you, give you marital advice. It's not my job to like give you financial advice. And I think that because martial arts instructors are such an authority and they have such an impact on the personal development of students' lives, that it's common you hear that the instructor tries to kind of take control, like a obsessive or obsessive or paranoid boyfriend or girlfriend that wants to control everything you do. And the truth is that like we're a vehicle to you to help you, teach you to use your body in training to complement everything else that you do. Like we're going to help you on the mat, and it's not our job to tell you what to do with your wife, with your husband, and I think that that is where a cult comes in, you're like you get controlled. And uh, students can get very, very vulnerable, and the outbursts come, like when jiu-jitsu is very, very, very emotional activity. Like it's very, very emotional, and you let a lot of good and bad emotions out. And sometimes that comes in the means of like, what? I've been drinking for a long time. I've been binge drinking, or I've been smoking, or I've been doing stuff that I should not be doing. And you talk to your instructor about it. And I think sometimes the instructor or coach or whoever could take that and kind of say, I want to take, I believe they should be coming from a good place. Like I want to help them get them some advice, but it could easily turn into like coaches trying to control the students, higher ranks trying to control them, and that makes for a cultish atmosphere. Because a lot of good change happens. We know that, and some people just don't know how to handle. They don't know how to handle the authority and position of authority that we're in to help other people. They kind of like abuse it, and they take it from teaching them jujitsu, physical, mental discipline to, well, you got to do whatever I say, and that's
So
a cult, in my
so
opinion.
so yeah, and when you start, when you start having, I guess, like in a true cult, we'll take what was that, dude? What was that actual cult in where was it?
Waco,
It was in
Texas.
it was yeah. What was the one in Texas that I'm thinking of? It was like oh, where was it?
David something.
Yeah, yeah. So that was
David
like a legit
Koresh.
cult, like controlled, what that like their schedule of like what they did during the day in the compound. They couldn't leave. Like what?
Yeah.
There's a the Fixer Upper show is out of there. Waco, out of Waco, Texas.
Waco, Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was like an extreme case, right? And then we when we had Coach Professor Greg on from Gracie Baja Northville, you mentioned there's a lot of good positive life changes that come from jujitsu and just the environment, the team itself. I mean, the team is arguably I could argue that the team is almost greater than the art itself. Like the people and the support system that come from that. He had a student who, it literally saved his life. Like he was on the verge of committing suicide. Jiu-jitsu, helped him get back to a better place mentally and with his mental health with that. And he thanked Greg, and Greg was like, "Dude, you did the work. I'm just kind of here providing the avenue, right? The catalyst, if you will." And so you talk to these people, and they develop, sure, they develop relationships a lot. And I personally like to stay in touch with, I've got I know several of our members, they've got new kids and they've got up and coming kids. And so that's just kind of part of being a coach. But you mentioned the control aspect. Your control ends pretty much at the door, like your control ends at the door, unless it starts to affect inside the mat. So I know I remember one. Do you remember the scenario we had? We enrolled a dude, and he I think we posted like a welcome post on Facebook, like, "Hey, let's welcome this guy." I don't even remember his name. Like I don't know. I don't remember it. And then come to find out, like his ex-wife or soon to be someone called, and like it was a current member, like she had a restraining order against him. It was like he was like abusive, and come to find out, like this guy was like a lot of bad things that we had no idea, like there's no way we can know just from one
Yeah.
standpoint. And she was currently a member with us, and so now
Yeah.
we've got to make a decision, right? Either let this guy on the team and say to, well, we have to accept all, or like we've got decisions to make here. How do you draw that line? Because that's a situation like that has happened at least twice that I can remember, possibly a third time since we've been in business. Where do you draw the line with that?
Yeah, like the Jiu-Jitsu Academy is my house. It's your house. It's I was telling one of our blue and purples, I'm like, you're here multiple days a week. This is your house. So the house belongs to everybody. And inside the house, we have to protect the people inside the house. So if somebody happens to come into our house, all of us, and they're living in that house, so we have to protect them from strangers. And at that point, for us it was an easy call. And there's yeah, with domestic issues, there's always two sides to a story. Some people say there's his side, her side, and the truth, but everybody interprets it a little differently. But the fact is, it's not personal. And we asked the person visiting, say, look, you know what, appreciate you coming in, but it's probably best that you find another place. There might be a conflict of interest. Nothing against you, nothing against the other person, but we draw the line by saying you've committed to us, and we're going to do everything in our power, in, on, and off the mat with our capacity to help you stay on this journey for to get stronger, to get mentally, physically, in all areas of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done that. Yeah, we've done that. I just remembered a firm third example as well. And and I like that you pointed that out. You know, you protect your own, you protect, you know, those who come to that house. I think that's a good example. You know, I've got coach. So coach, we're about 7 minutes over. I'm gonna since this is, you know, gonna be a question more directed at you. Do we have time to go into what briefly intro of what jiu-jitsu training is like at Ramadan, or do you want to save that next week during actual Ramadan? I'll kind of leave the ball in your court before we kind of check out some of these comments.
Yeah. We could, yeah, we can go over the comments. Well, like next week will be our first, Tuesday is our first day of fasting. So
Gotcha.
we will actually start next week and hopefully we'll have something posted by then for our viewers. But yeah, we'll probably talk about it next week and maybe we can check out the comments.
All right, so comment got a couple comments on and I don't know. Squad 177 says count to 10, and I'll tell you, I don't know what that means. I literally have no idea what that means. The internet is such a wild place, dude. Like you know, I remember in driver's. Here's what I think about as the internet, right? Like in driver's ed, they're like people get this false sense of like confidence, and they're like, you can't, you know, you would never just take your buggy or your cart in a shopping store and push someone out of the way and cut in front of them
Yeah.
in the line. He's like,
Yeah.
but people do that all the time in their vehicle. And he's like, so you want to be careful not to like get this fall. And I'm like 16, so I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And the internet is just a magnified version of that, right? Like it's like this magnified, like, dude, like just the trolls that happen, right? Like, and you're like, you would never, ever talk to somebody that way in like in real life. Usually, I mean, usually, and it's just man, it's wild. It's like one big like it's a matrix, dude. It's kind of a matrix a little bit. Like it's like this fake pseudo world a little bit. But and then I'm gonna check because they're not showing up on this ecam, but I'm gonna check our Facebook. I think that's it as far as the comments we got here. I'm checking Facebook right now, and yours popped up talking about crypto. Crypto's at an all-time high, which leads me to believe the dollar's at an all-time low.
Is that
Uh,
the cycle? Like the last bull run,
dude,
the
I don't
crypto's
like
high,
I
dollars
listen.
low?
I don't I kept up with crypto for like on the last bull run, and I'm firmly convinced that's where like outside of like COVID, that's where most of my gray hair came from. Like, shit was so stressful. Like it would up and down. Like I'm like, just I'm a believer of it. Like let me just say, I believe crypto. There is a place for crypto 50 years from now. But I'm not sure, dude. I just don't have. I don't have the mental strength to day trade it. You know, kudos to those who do. I just don't have the fortitude with it. That's all. Yeah, that's all the comments we've got on Facebook and YouTube. So guys, do us a favor. If you're watching this, if you're on YouTube, what is this? Subscribe on YouTube. If this is not on Instagram yet, it will be. You know, go ahead and subscribe. What is it? Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. Like us on Facebook. Obviously, we've got, you know, we are Metro Jiu-Jitsu. We do kickboxing now, though. Kickboxing for kids and adults. We have a summer program. Lots, dude. So, I've got dozens of calls back to make for our 5 summer locations here, including Canton, Livonia, Monroe, Brighton, and Southgate. Kids grades K through 6. So lots of cool. That's a cool, unique avenue to introduce kids to jiu-jitsu through the summer. And then what we're actually doing is you know, if they love jiu-jitsu, because we don't have academies in all 5 of those cities yet. So we're referring them out. Like, you know, in Livonia, I'm kind of referring them towards Commonwealth. In Brighton, you know, we've got like Freedom out that way. You know, the Canton location. Well, we will have a spot. Monroe, you know, Coach Todd, who we saw at Grappling Industries this weekend, you know, in Monroe Jiu-Jitsu. So lots of, you know, we if you're training jiu-jitsu, we're happy. If it's with us, cool, helps us as well. But ultimately, swear, you know, the growing the art is what is really the whole point of what we're doing here. So, Coach, you got anything to add before we log off?
No, that's it, man.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. So, Coach, we will. I mean, same time. So fasting starts Tuesday. So are we doing the same time next week then?
Probably not, because we will
Yeah,
be fasting Tuesday, so we might make an alteration
got
to
it.
the schedule, but we'll
Stay
probably
posted for it
announce
then,
it.
guys. Stay tuned
Yeah,
for what it is, and appreciate your support. As always, we'll see you guys on the
on the
mats.
mat.